In 30 years, most of the world's largest economies will be those that are emerging today, surpassing current behemoths such as the United States, Japan, and Germany. Brexit, coronavirus, and trade tiffs may be making economic headwinds, but despite immediate challenges, the world economy is projected to keep growing at a rapid pace over the next few decades. In fact, by 2050, the global market is projected to double its current size. Even as the United Nations forecasts, the world's population will only grow by a modest 26%. This growth will bring with it plenty of changes, though it can be challenging to predict exactly how the future will unfold. Most economists agree on one thing: today's developing markets will be tomorrow's economic superpowers. According to the World in 2050 report by international professional services firm in PwC, in 30 years, 6 of the 7 of the world's largest economies will be today's emerging economies, surpassing the United States, dropping from second to third, Japan dropping from 4th to 8th, and Germany dropping from the 5th to 9th. Even relatively smaller economies like Vietnam and Philippines and Nigeria will see huge leaps in their respective rankings over the next 3 decades, according to the report. We spoke to residents living in 5 countries with hypergrowth potential to find out how they are navigating the rapid changes already occurring, what benefits come with living in these places, and the challenges they face as their countries climb the rankings. China is measured by GDP by purchasing power parity, which adjusts for price level differences across countries. China already has the largest economy in the world. The Asian behemoth has seen massive economic gains over the past decade. But economists promise that it is just the tip of the iceberg for what the future holds. The big economic changes are happening right in front of the residents' eyes. My home for the last few years, the industrial park of Suzhou, is a glittering urban paradise of shopping malls, parks, restaurants, and traffic. But when I first came to China 15 years ago, the whole area was swamp and farmland, said Rowan Cole, author of the First-Minute Chinese books. This is a very common story in China. The whole country is changing. The changes are attracting a brand new set of entrepreneurs and others looking for financial opportunity amid the seemingly unstoppable growth. China's largest city, Shanghai, is where many newcomers make their start. Shanghai is an entrepreneurial and very commercially minded city, said American John Pabon, founder of Shanghai-based Fulcrum Strategic Advisors. From the early morning traders at the wet markets to honking motorbikes at traffic lights to late nights in the office, everyone is here to get ahead. But unlike New York City, where Pabon lived previously and found people usually held their cards close to their chests, residents here are always willing to listen and provide sound advice. In order to work and live here, however, expats must learn Mandarin. It's no longer nice to have in China, Pabon said. Without Mandarin, you're going to find your options pretty limited for work and in social and cultural circles, and you may not even be allowed in at all. Everything we knew was not sustainable is collapsing now. When I heard my colleague summarize what she sees going on, it seemed like an almost universal observation applicable to so many systems and sectors. In the past few weeks, we've seen blue skies over Beijing, at least for a little while, and blue skies, as well cleaner rivers across many other hotbeds of industrial production. It's almost as if, as several observers have suggested, Mother Nature has sent us to our rooms to think about what we are doing to her, to each other, and to ourselves. We've been given a time out as a species. What key learnings can we take from this collective moment? Rise. As systems collapse, people rise. As systems collapse, people rise. People rise to the occasion in an absolutely remarkable manner. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of volunteers have shown up in their own countries and communities to help their neighbors and to support the selfless work of frontline healthcare professionals who, often without access to healthcare insurance for themselves, are putting their own lives on the line for the flood of COVID-19 patients needing care. Connection, we are one system. COVID-19 has become one of the most effective and impactful teachers of our time. It's providing an advanced lesson on systems thinking with the planet's 7.8 billion citizens as students. Yes, some of us have already learned these lessons intellectually, but now our bodies have too. We are acutely aware of our global interconnectedness. A new superpower, awareness-based collective action. Since the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989, we have been debating who is the world's current or next superpower. Who will shape the 21st century? The United States? China? Both? Some other entity? If you want to see the next superpower in the making, you may have to widen your view and look more deeply. Systemic failures, big government, big market, big data. The systems map and figure 1 can also help us to better understand the types of systematic failure that the corona crisis has highlighted for us. What happens when your response to a situation as an individual is purely reactive, level 1? You panic, buy in order to stockpile your personal reserves, thereby disrupting the supply chain and depriving your neighbors of necessities. Stopping when you face disruption, you need to wake up. When you face disruption, you need to stop downloading the patterns of the past and wake up. According to The Guardian and the South China Morning Post, the first COVID-19 case on record in China was identified on November 17, 2019. Even though 266 people were infected in 2019, it took the Chinese government until January 21st, 2020 to acknowledge the human-to-human transmission of the virus. When waking up, we have a choice. The second part of waking up deals with what's next. When you stop downloading, you realize that you actually have a choice. A choice in how you respond to any situation. You can respond by turning away or by turning toward. Turning away means closing your mind, heart, and will, in other words, acting from ignorance, hate, and fear. Turning toward means opening your mind, heart, and will, acting from curiosity, compassion, and courage. These are the choices we face in any moment. Do we turn away and close down, or do we turn toward and open up, activating the deeper levels of our humanity, reimagining our civilization, new innovation infrastructures, new learning infrastructures that link head, heart, and hand whole person learning? Examples include action learning and whole-person learning initiatives both in institutions of education and outside of them, such as ULab or the School for Transformation. New democratic infrastructures that make our governance processes more direct, more distributed, more diverse, and more dialogic. Examples here include citizens' assemblies on climate action, in some cases combined with a referendum on the proposed results, as it is already beginning to happen in an increasing number of countries, including France, Scotland, England, Spain, and Germany. New economics infrastructures that shift the main focus of economic activity from ecosystem awareness to ecosystem awareness, from me to we. Examples here include the various acupuncture points for transforming capitalism in ways that relink the coordination and governance of economic activity back with human awareness and human intention at all levels of scale. Co-creative ecosystems upgrading our operating systems. One way of illustrating systems change is with the analogy of a smartphone. Every smartphone user knows that in order for the device to function well, once in a while you need to upgrade your operating system. Figure 4 shows how the operating systems of society have evolved over time. Each sector has followed the same trajectory, from input-centric to output-centric, from there to user-centric, and from there to ecosystem-centric. The last column depicts the evolution of governance, that is, the evolution of the coordination mechanism that we use to steer the system. What we can do now, seeding the superpower in the making, what can we do now? The most important leverage point for profound change lies in seeding and cultivating these fields of deepened connection with each other, with nature, and with ourselves. The emerging superpower of this century is linked to our capacity to bend the beam of observation back onto ourselves. This shift of our attention allows us to see ourselves through each other's eyes, to keep our gaze focused on our behavior as a collective, and to become aware of our own blind spots. In order to bend the curve, to reimagine and reshape civilization to bridge the ecological, social, and spiritual divides. For countless individuals and families, normal life has already been upended in previously unimaginable ways. But how will the pandemic influence the future behavior of nation-states, governments and leaders, and their often dysfunctional relationships? Will they work together more closely, or will this shared trauma further divide them? Some analysts see grounds for optimism, for example in beneficial environmental effects in northern Italy and China. Countries hitherto at odds such as Iran and the UAE are cooperating, at least temporarily. In the Philippines, the crisis prompted a ceasefire with communist rebels. Global interdependence and the importance of collective, multilateral approach have been vividly underscored. But there is also a more pessimistic view typified by Stefan Walt, professor of international relations at Harvard University. The pandemic will strengthen the state and reinforce nationalism. Governments of all types will adopt emergency measures to manage the crisis, and many will be loath to relinquish these new powers when the crisis is over, he wrote in Foreign Policy magazine. Walt continued, COVID-19 will also accelerate the shift in power and influence from west to east. The response in Europe and America has been slow and haphazard by comparison with China, South Korea, and Singapore, further tarnishing the aura of the Western brand. We will see a further retreat from hyper-globalization as citizens look to national governments to protect them, and as states and firms seek to reduce future vulnerabilities. In short, COVID-19 will create a world that is less open, less prosperous, and less free. Is Walt right? The cop-out answer is only time will tell, yet the outcome is not preordained. The responses of everybody, from presidents and prime ministers to ordinary citizens, to the myriad challenges and upheavals arising from the pandemic will help determine what happens next. It's a chance to reset both global and personal landscapes. Notwithstanding present feelings of powerlessness, there are choices to be made about what kind of future awaits. After COVID-19, everything could be up for grabs.
Most of the idea, comment, information, and criticism containing in these videos have been created by Daily News Report. Before making any important investment decision, use the information contained in these videos as a starting point for conducting your own research. If you make any investment or legal decision, it is advised to consult an expert before making this decision.